That's him. Dad, you never saw us. And if he asks where we were never here and we're never coming back.
Got it. How annoying could one kid be?
Honey, I'm home!
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a buddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study! I'll never get into Stanford!
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what's the trope we're talking about tonight?
Well, we're doing crossovers, and I just realized we should be doing a crossover.
I had that thought. You mean we should have people from another podcast or something?
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, there's lots of podcasts about TV shows. They probably, I'm sure it's been done. Yeah.
Yes, we are doing crossovers all by our lonesome. No crossover here today. And this week we are watching I Love Lucy, Season 6, Episode 13, Lucy and Superman. Silver Spoons, Season 1, Episode 7, The Great Computer Caper. Full House, Season 4, Episode 16, Stephanie Gets Framed, and Abbott Elementary, Season 4, Episode 9, Volunteers.
Yeah, so crossover episodes, this is a big thing in TV, and I would say in all of everything. Books, movies,
well, yeah,
whatever.
Everything is a universe now.
Yeah, but I would say it goes back to, you know, whatever. You read everything from your ancient texts, you know, you look at like the like Oresteia or something, and, you know, you got the same characters, you know, Antigone pops up in this play and Electra shows up in that play. I think of like Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn and stuff, you know, these authors that would create these little worlds and the different characters would pop up in each other's
Yeah, they had such a good time
books.
writing for these characters that they decided to add them into other things rather than create new ones.
In the movies, you would have the Universal Monster Mash and stuff. Okay, we did Dracula, we did Frankenstein. How about Frankenstein meets Dracula? You know, the comics, I think this was always a big thing. And the reason I think is because it tickles people's imaginations to have these characters kind of live outside of their worlds,
right.
You know, and I think it was especially fun in the comics because you would get to see the characters from one title be drawn in the style from the other artist, you know, so it's like, oh, cool, Todd McFarlane, who normally draws Spider-Man, we get to see what his version of Wolverine looks like or whatever. So yeah, you get to just combine all kinds of different sensibilities and stuff. There's lots to be said here. Was this a thing for you? Do you remember, like, were you ever excited by crossovers?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, are there any that jump out besides the ones we're about to talk about?
Well, for me, because we watched Mad About You. Like, that was one that my parents watched, and we had the one TV, so we all watched it. And so, yeah, when Friends came out and Phoebe was Ursula, and then it was like, and then they were like, oh yeah, but Ursula is her sister, so it's actually a real connection. Yeah. That I was just like waiting until that one happened, and of course it did. It was, you know, it was called like the one with two parts or something. It was a big two-parter, and they had, you know, and that was like must-see TV Thursday night. You know, both Mad About You and Friends were on that, and so it was just huge to have that happen.
Yeah, I remember one that I loved from back in the 90s was when the Critic showed up on The Simpsons, right? The Simpsons now has, of course, crossed over with Futurama and Family Guy and all the other Fox shows, but this was one of the first times that they did it. The Critic was a pretty fun animated show on Fox that, you know, ran for a few seasons, obviously not nearly as long-lived as The Simpsons.
Right. I don't think anything ever will be as long-lived as The Simpsons.
But Jay Sherman, the, you know, sort of pretentious film critic character that John Lovitz played on The Critic, they had a Simpsons episode where they had a film festival, and so he came over, and so, you know, it was a great way to sort of, you know, you're combining the slightly different different senses of humor because the critic had all the stuff about like the movie parodies and everything. I remember that one stuck out to me. I feel like at its best, these things are going to be like combining different sensibilities and sort of seeing what happens when these different characters are unleashed on each other. But a lot of times it sort of ends up as just like, well, like they film in the same place and it's the same producers. And so it's just like one character sort of popping in to the other
and
ones.
there are a lot that are like that are just cameos, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it was like a Mad About You and Mad About You and Seinfeld, where they figure out like that's how Kramer got the apartment. Paul Reiser apparently used to live there before he and Helen Hunt moved in together. And so there was just this like one moment, of a Kramer kind of cameo. And then that was it. And there's tons of those. Like there's the Abed showing up in Cougar Town because in the world of Community, he's obsessed with Cougar Town. And then, and they did film on the same lot, so he ended up just having a little cameo in both, and it became a storyline. But it was kind of, it was one of these things that it happened so fast, it's a blinker, you miss it. So you don't like, those aren't the ones that we were looking at.
We also tried to avoid situations where it's a spin-off, and so the crossover is sort of built into the value of the show.
Well, and a lot of times with the spin-off ones, the first crossover episode was a backdoor pilot, or not even like backdoor pilot. It was already greenlit and they were in production, but that's how they were going to introduce the characters.
Yeah, a lot of times you're going to have seen these characters all hanging out together in the episode of sitcom A that is the backdoor pilot, and then they'll bring in those characters for the pilot of the new one, sitcom B, and so it's not really special to see the Golden Girls hanging out with the Empty Nest crew because they're like that all along. Right.
Although later on in the series, I think, and this is where, at first I feel like those are just launching pads, and they don't feel as much like crossovers because the one needs the other, right? Yeah. Whereas later on, when Empty Nest was already established and Nurses had already spun off of Empty Nest, and now you had these 3 shows, they did A Hurricane Hits Miami, and all 3, Golden Girls, Empty Nest, and Nurses, had to like hunker down together to get through the hurricane. And so it was actually 3 episodes all about the same event. And those kinds of things we see happen across some of our TGIF.
Yes,
they did those types of things, less interaction between the casts, but more just like an event
common
is happening.
Bond. Yes, which is a fun idea. Yeah, I read about a thing where they had the Golden Girls and a handful of other shows. They all go to Las Vegas. And so it's like, they cross paths a little bit in each episode because, again, they're taking advantage of the fact that these are all filmed in the same place and everything, but they are sort of their own shows. But again, what we're really looking for is episodes where it might be a surprise to find out like, oh, the cousin Steve that this character mentioned is actually Steve Urkel, and even though there's a little bit of sort of like origin story sharing going on with those too, I guess Family Matters is more a spinoff of Perfect Strangers than Full House. But we're going for shows that are contemporaneous where it's like, oh, what a surprise, this character from that other show showed up.
So with I Love Lucy, this is the very first instance of a sitcom crossover. This is where I Love Lucy, Lucy and Ricky are giving a birthday party for their son who's turning 5, little Ricky, yes. And he's obsessed with the Adventures of Superman, which is on television. And of course, Big Ricky works in the entertainment industry. And so Lucy gets it in her mind that she is going to one-up this other birthday party that's happening and try to get Superman for little Ricky's birthday.
There's rival birthday parties on the same day. And Lucy's gambit is going to be to get Superman to show up at Ricky's party, forcing the other family to have to change their date. Now, this is the huge question that is hanging over this entire episode. This is bizarre as hell. I know ahead of time this is me taking things too seriously, but this is so stupefying to me. In this episode, in the world of I Love Lucy, Season 6, Episode 13, is Superman real? Or is he a fictional character on a TV show? Because this episode does all kinds of crazy gymnastics to walk that line and not establish any consistent logic. So what is your understanding?
Well, so there's plenty written about this. If you just do a little Googling, there's a whole Wikipedia page just on this episode.
Well, then can I say, before you say the real stuff, can I say, because I have a list of like plus and minuses, like reasons.
Oh, yeah, please do it. Go for it. I would love to hear your, is he real? Is he Superman?
The reasons to think that Superman is real, the Kal-El, having come here from planet Krypton and is a superhuman character, is a real thing in the world of I Love Lucy, because A, they never mention his real name, George Reeve, or anything like that. There's never any mention, even when adults are talking without children present. He is always referred to as Superman. They don't make any mention of George Reeve. No relation to Christopher Reeves, who also played Superman, Next Generation. When Superman himself shows up, you can't say he flies exactly, but he flings himself through some
window.
sort of cabinet or something.
He vaults through one of those pass-through windows from the kitchen into the living
Then he proceeds
dining area.
to go out on a ledge where Lucy is hanging out with pigeons. We'll get to all that. And is not at all intimidated by being out on a third-story ledge, just sort of effortless. Again, does not fly, mind you.
No.
But effortlessly hops from one ledge onto the other. And and those are the reasons why you would think that Superman is real. On the other hand, Superman travels by plane. It is explicitly mentioned he has to get plane tickets because he can't fly.
He's going to Terre Haute, so he has to catch a plane.
He has a secretary that Ricky does business with, which I don't remember in any of the Superman comics or movies. Him as Superman, he might have had one as Clark Kent. I don't remember him having a secretary. And when Ricky announces to the children that Superman is going to come, he refers to him as your favorite TV star, not your favorite alien superhero who has real superpowers and saves the world. He's a TV star. So I am just so confused as to, like, does Ricky Ricardo in this world believe Superman to be a real guy?
Absolutely not. It was purposefully done. So it was purposefully done to not spoil the magic for the kids. There's lots of little Easter eggs in there that you mentioned about, like, oh, I talked to his secretary. They never say George Reeve. They never say his name on purpose. They only ever refer to him as Superman. But obviously, Superman doesn't have a secretary. They're calling George Reeves secretary. Also, he has to make other appearances in Terre Haute. That's why he's got to take a plane. So there's all these little nuggets in there so the adults can figure out that they're talking not about a real Superman.
So, like, if Santa Claus were on the show, it's that same kind of thing. Okay, so this is literally, this is not just for little Ricky. This is for the kids watching I Love Lucy at home.
And there was a voiceover on the original airing of the episode. There was a voiceover at the end that said, you know, and Superman played by George Reeve, which was cut out for syndication because, again, they didn't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. And you have to remember, I guess, this is a time when there are 3 broadcast channels where, you know, I Love Lucy probably has like a 78% share of the market or something. So yeah, when this George Reeves Superman show is on, he is, I guess, like a, you know, sort of fixture of American life. You know, like they don't want to mess up that illusion.
And isn't he, so like I was very impressed by the like foot first vaulting himself through the pass-through window. And I feel like, I didn't look this up, but I feel like I remember reading at some point that he was like a gymnast, and that's how he ended up getting this role. And also, isn't it interesting that he's a Reeves, and then later Christopher is a Reeve?
I think it's one of those things that most of us just assume they were father and son. But yeah, it is, one is Reeves and one's Reeve. And yeah, it is an extremely bizarre, just Christopher Reeve's life is full of such bizarre irony
Yeah.
to be the same name as the guy who played the
Or
same
almost the same name.
character,
Yeah.
and then to have this horrible accident that renders you like the opposite of the character you play. It's just such a bizarre life that guy had. But anyway, yeah, we've sort of pleasantly, I think, glossed over most of the story of this episode, which is fine. Like every I Love Lucy episode, it basically involves Lucy getting herself into a pickle that she has to resolve with some sort of disguise or something.
Some caper,
because
yes.
when she initially asks Ricky, hey, you know Superman because of your Hollywood connections or whatever, wouldn't it be a good idea to get him to come to the party? She then, seconds later, tells little Ricky, guess what? Superman's coming to your party.
Yes.
And tells the competing
wait,
mom.
yeah, don't wait for confirmation.
Yes.
Spread the rumor around
Right.
because the other mom was already winning in the battle of parties.
Yes.
Because she was going to have a magician and she was going to have, I don't know.
A magician, a clown, and a puppet show.
There
the
you go.
trifecta that can only be beaten with Superman.
With Superman.
And so, yeah, I mean, the crux of the episode is, Lucy going like, oh, gee, what am I gonna do? And I love it when Ethel is like, Lucy, like she basically says, who are we kidding? You're gonna get dressed up in a weird costume because
Like,
that's
you
what
know
you always do.
that's what you're going to do to solve the problem, because when Ricky does call back and say, hey, sorry, Lucy, it's not going to work out, Superman's got to be in Terre Haute. Actually, he says it Terre Haute or something, like he says it in a weird way, and I'm like, what?
I've never heard of this place.
Terre Haute, Indiana. It's a major city. But anyway, so he's like, he can't be there. He's got to go make this other appearance or whatever. So yeah, and then like you said, Ethel's like, but Lucy's like, what am I going to do? And Ethel's like, please, you know what you're going to do. And by the way, this is a classic Lucy outfit. Okay.
Oh yeah.
She puts on this
like a leather
motorcycle
football helmet or something.
Yeah, it's
like the old timey football helmets, like in the movie Leatherheads.
No, but it's not a football helmet because it's got some like padding underneath. Those old timey football helmets were literally just a leather
But
helmet.
it is that leather, maybe like something a pilot would wear.
Well, no, it's like leather on top of a shell. But anyway, so yeah, she's got this what it looks like a retro motorcycle helmet looks like now, except for it's covered in leather. And then she's got like these tights that she has on, these like leggings, but she has them on over her regular pantyhose and garters, and you can see her garters underneath these like
this
Superman
was not a
tights.
concern in 1952 when
On
you're
the
watching
tiny
it on
little
an
black and
8-inch
white TVs.
Screen. Yeah.
And then she's got on boxer shorts, like Ricky's boxer shorts rolled over the top.
I thought it was like a kilt or something because it's got that like plaid tartan
Well,
pattern.
that's why I thought it was boxer shorts.
I think you could imagine, obviously this is in black and white, she's looking for something, I guess, big and red to kind of go over her like pelvis section.
Yes.
To approximate that like old strongman Superman thing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's funny because...
And a cape. Of course she has a cape.
I mean, besides this weird skirt boxer shorts thing and the helmet, she basically has a normal, like an actual Superman
Like,
outfit,
she has like a onesie, and then put all these other
with
things
the Superman insignia, though.
Yes.
Like, it looks like
that
the real
she's
thing.
drawn it on.
Yeah. And so she goes out. They establish, there's a vacant apartment next door that Fred and Ethel are trying to let or to rent out. And so, Lucy's plan is like, okay, no problem. The kids come over for the birthday party. I excuse myself, go into the neighboring apartment, go out on the ledge. Don't mind that it's a third-story window. I'll just be careful. And I'm going to fly, quote unquote, into the room, into the window at the appropriate time. And when Ethel is like, but what about... you look nothing like Superman. She goes, I'll run around the room really fast, and the kids will be so hopped up on sugar and stuff that they won't even know.
The cake and the sugar, they won't recognize me.
Yeah.
And that's why she's got the big bicycle helmet thing on, because, Ethel says Superman doesn't wear a helmet that's like, antithetical to Superman. And she's like, yes, well, he would if he was trying to hide his long red hair.
Right. Yeah. This, I feel like it's been a while since I quoted my little friend from Blackish. This is a plan that comes pre-ruined, right? She gets out on the ledge. We have flashbacks of the Punky Brewster episode where she had to go out and
she doesn't have to
save
crawl
Spud.
over a giant nose or hold on to someone else's cardboard belt. But she does hold on to a drain pipe that does fall.
Yeah, we get the little action suspense beat of a drain pipe that falls over, but what we really get is lots of pigeons.
Yes.
We have like a dozen real-life pigeons. These are the least skittish pigeons in the world.
They are trying so hard, though, to just avoid her, and like they keep walking down the ledge, and she just keeps trying to put her foot in between them so she can have a place to stand.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to her, and she's got one on each shoulder and one on her head.
Yeah. And so, that's her thing, is like, okay, I'm going to go out on this ledge.
So I can come in through the window to make it look like I flew in.
Right. But that never gets to happen because... Right. So what happens first? People come to look at the apartment, but then also, of course, Ricky scores an appearance from the actual Superman.
Yes. So, yeah, there's two people that show up to come and see the apartment. They just drop by, and, Fred is going to blow his top if Ethel doesn't go show the apartment. So she's like, okay, fine. So she goes over there and cleans up all of Lucy's clothes that she's left over there because when she's changed into her Superman getup. And she lets the people in, and she's trying to hurry them through the little tour so that she can go back to the party and open the window so Lucy can get in.
Right.
Their whole shtick is that Ethel's going to look out the window and be like, wow, kids, look, I think I just saw Superman. And then...
It's a bird, it's a plane.
Yes.
That is the standard nomenclature.
There you go. But so she's trying to like hurry these people through their tour of the apartment, and then she keeps going back over to the party to check things out. And then in the meanwhile, real Superman has shown up, and he comes feet first through the little pass-through window, and the kids are all enamored. So then,
I don't want to gloss over this because it is really something. You keep saying pass-through window, which I guess makes sense, but this is not a concept I even really was familiar with. That's why I say it looks like he comes out of a cupboard or something. Yeah, exactly. It's like an indoor window from one room to another room. But when I say like a grown
We've
man,
talked about these, like
I know, but this one, it seems high. I guess it wasn't. It's just like the one in Alf. It's just sort of like counter level.
Yeah, a little higher than counter level because, you got the backsplash or whatever.
In my mind, it was almost up like a heating vent at the top of the room or something.
No, he kind of, because of the way he swung through, like I'm imagining the setup was that there was a bar that he like swung on and went feet
Yes,
feet
this
first.
is like Tarzan type things where, or like the move in the movies where you jump up and grab something with your hands and then kick the guy.
Yeah. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah. This guy, again, big ass dude. Like he's a bulkier guy than Christopher Reeve. He easily, 190 pound guy. Yeah. Comes in again, feet first. So like almost horizontally, almost like a parkour type thing. Like it just kind of defies physics, and just like lands in the room. And it's like, hey, here I am.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool stunt, and that he very clearly did himself.
Oh, yeah.
There was no like cutaway and whatever. No.
This is why he was Superman.
Exactly. Like this was him. And that's why I said, I was like, when I saw that, I had this like kind of vague recollection of at some point reading that he was a gymnast. And I was like, oh, well, then that makes sense. That's like, when they're swinging on the uneven bars or the parallel bars or whatever, these are the types of tricks that they can learn how to do.
And you also have to think in a Superman show being made in the 40s where you don't have special effects and stuff, this is probably a maneuver that they did quite often.
Oh, yeah. This is probably like exactly. rather than front, like fist first.
Well, there's even a line about that when Ethel and Lucy are planning her entrance and Ethel goes, well, how does Superman enter a room? And she's like, well, he can fly through the window or sometimes he smashes his way through the wall. And I can't do that.
Fred would kill me if I did that.
Yeah, so I guess the idea is like Lucy now, she's like, oh, well now, at first she was waiting for her cue.
Right, well, Ethel forgets about her because later on somebody was like, oh yeah, whatever happened to Lucy? And she was like, oh, she's outside. Lucy! And she like goes to try to get her. But so, yeah, she kind of forgets in all the hubbub of Superman being there. And then Lucy peeks in, like, because she finally makes it around the corner and to the ledge to get to her window, into her apartment. She looks in, she sees real Superman.
My Superman, my leather helmet, plaid scarf. skirt Superman is no longer necessary.
Right. So she starts to make her way back, and that's when she gets her cape stuck on the part of the drain pipe that came loose.
Yes.
And so now she's stuck out there on the ledge.
Right. And then it starts raining. And so eventually the prospective tenants that were in the apartment go, oh, let's do them a favor and close the window.
Right.
Typical comedy of errors. You know, Lucy is trapped outside in the rain on her third-story ledge. And so this is going to be, you know, what we all came for. You know, like you said, Ethel eventually realizes, oh, shit, Lucy is still out on the ledge. And so, you know, first of all, you know, when Ricky goes, oh my God, runs over to the window, they have a piano, right, sitting right under the window. Now, part of the way that they establish that this is the real quote unquote Superman is that he effortlessly
Ricky
tosses
keeps
the piano
trying to move
aside.
the piano, and
the piano is
and then
obviously
it's
on wheels.
Yes, of course.
But what was Lucy planning on doing about this? She was just going to like jump over the piano
later. That like she and Ethel didn't think through how she was going to get in.
Pianos are expensive.
It just would have been hilarious because she would have been like blonk blonk, like stepping on the piano as her entrance.
So Superman gets rid of the piano, you know, pushes it out of the way and goes out on the ledge. And this is what is going to be, you know, on your commercial, on the cover of TV Guide, right? Superman and Lucy side by side, you know, where this isn't even a proper sitcom crossover, really, because I don't think Superman would be considered a sitcom.
No, it was a 30-minute show, though.
Yeah, but you see like this, like, yes, this is the marketing concept behind doing something like this. Two characters that are iconic in different ways.
Lucy on a ledge, like in a fake Superman costume, getting rescued by actual Superman.
Yeah, exactly. And the way all of her craziness and everything, you know, can create this problem for Superman to solve, and her energy, you know, her sort of manic, frazzled energy is going to be a perfect contrast for his very put together, heroic energy. And then, of course, you get at the end, Superman asks Ricky, so you're saying that this is your wife? You're married to this woman? And Ricky goes,
wait, you're saying you've been married to her for 15
years? Yeah. And Ricky goes like, yep, that's the way it is. And he goes, and they call me Superman.
And there's the joke.
Yeah. And that's it, right? I mean, that's pretty much the episode. And like we said, you know, it's fascinating to me for all the reasons we talked about, just the way it asserts that Superman is a real guy, but also a character on TV. You know, I guess it sort of goes without saying, all of these other sitcoms are going to take it as their conceit that these characters, you know, like Stephanie on Full House doesn't watch Family Matters on TV,
right? And
then meet Steve
but
Urkel.
That's the thing. They aren't taking. I think you're overthinking it when you're like, they're taking Superman as a real person, and I'm like, no,
they're not. But they're doing a little bit of like the fact that it does a little bit of both is what makes it.
They're making the TV show character, like they're making believe that the TV show character is real, so they're not ruining it for anybody, and I think that's cute. And then it just so happens that Lucy does get stuck, and isn't that funny? And then he goes and helps because he is a big strapping dude who, truthfully, would probably be the most agile one to go out on that ledge and get her. You know what I mean?
I mean, he and Ricky actually have kind of similar looks in a way. He's sort of like a more waspy Ricky Ricardo. Maybe.
I don't know. Ricky was a little bit schlubby at this point. You could definitely see the alcohol get
George Reeves, though, he's not svelte.
No, he's got that barrel-chested thing like your grandfather had that you always talk about, like how men used to have these like big broad chests.
Yeah, he was circus strongman type. All right, let's move on to Silver Spoons.
Season 1, Episode 7, The Great Computer Caper. We're crossing over here with Different Strokes.
Yep, so we're also going from Ricky Ricardo to Ricky Schroder. We've talked about Silver Spoons a handful of times, and last time we talked about him, or at least one of the last times, was also kind of a crossover because he was palling around with Mr. T.
Oh, that's right.
It was a crossover with Rocky 3 and
know
various
about
other
but just Mr. T as a character
endeavors.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of noticing about Different Strokes about Silver Spoons is that it's so white. They just always need to like bring in, a cameo black character.
Well, it is funny that I think because it is about this super wealthy situation,
Yeah.
and granted, so is Different Strokes, they are always trying to contrast it with some sort of other walk of life,
Yeah,
I guess.
no, very true.
This one is going to be all about a reporter is coming to interview Ricky, right?
Yes.
His stepmom says,
Not stepmom, but okay.
what is she?
She is his dad's secretary.
Okay, well,
She's his dad's assistant right now. There is a
you're
love
saying
interest.
the dad is not boning this lady who is at the house
There's
at
a
all
love
hours.
interest, like will they, won't they? She's his personal assistant. There's like a love interest, will they, won't they thing. We've talked about
Okay.
this on the podcast
Yeah.
before, and it wasn't until like season 2 or whatever that they like got together.
All right, fair enough. Well, that
So
person,
not his stepmom.
that lady tells him that a reporter called and wants to interview him about computers.
Right, because he won the like Future Genius Award at his weekend computer camp.
Yeah, so little Ricky Schroder is like, okay, I wonder what outlet they're from. It's probably the New York Times or Forbes or, National Geographic or something.
Right.
And he walks over to the door, opens the door.
Well, he doesn't open the door.
Oh, yeah, no, we have to talk about this. Yes. Thank you for correcting me. In Silver Spoons, they have, is this maybe the least practical luxury invention, right? The dumbest Shark Tank idea ever. They open their front door by remote control.
Yeah,
So-
they have these remotes. Like the dad usually has it in his pocket, and then there's another one just laying around. But they do multiple things. It's like the iCarly remote that Sam always carried that
Yeah.
played different like sound clips or whatever. This one it opens the door and it does a few other like automated things around the house.
But so again, we've established the filthy rich family. That's the whole concept of the show. They don't have a butler or something who saves you the trouble of opening the door and showing the person in
No,
and saying,
they've automated
hello,
that.
this is who. That's the thing. But they've automated the opening part. But so, okay, you use this remote control, you open the door, and then you're standing 15 feet away from the person at your front door.
No, but it's great because then every time these people just like walk into the set.
Right.
Right.
which
They just
always
like
is
make
bizarre.
an entrance. Yeah.
Yeah. That is why this is so comically impractical to me. It's like if somebody rings your door and you open it,
Can you imagine what the Amazon people would do when they are dropping packages off? They ring the doorbell and all of a sudden the door just opens.
Yeah, or like Girl
what
Scouts
the
and
hell?
stuff. Yeah, you open the door. Yeah, from the point of view of the person showing up, the door opens.
And there's no one there.
No, it's not that there's no one there. This guy is like 10 feet away. It's going like, oh, hey, come in.
I couldn't bother to walk that far.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, Ricky opens his door by remote control and in walks little Gary Coleman playing Arnold Jackson.
Yeah.
So I guess I thought he was Arnold Drummond, but I guess, do they change that at a certain point? Like, do
Yeah.
they get officially adopted?
Yes, he does. At some point, he does get officially adopted. I remember, I think we talked about this one other time, that there was like something about him not really wanting to change his last name because he wanted to honor his mom and, and whatever. But then, yes, later on. And then he does call himself Arnold Drummond later on. So I know that there's both. But
so
yeah.
I was surprised by that, but it's little Arnold. He's got his little camera strapped around his neck and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's in little newspaper reporter mode. It is just amazing how tiny he is.
And he's hilarious. He keeps going on about his editor won't like any of the ideas that Ricky is pitching because they're boring.
Yes,
And
this is all for the Weekly Woodpecker.
That's
his
right.
School
The
newspaper.
sixth grade
Okay.
newspaper.
Yeah.
And the editor just, you know what, this story about you winning an award because you're good at computers is not juicy enough. I'm not gonna get off the 9th page at this
now,
rate.
we should say this 1982 episode of Silver Spoons was like co-written by Arthur C. Clarke or something. It was very prescient. He's sitting there, Ricky is telling him, someday people are going to do all of their banking and their shopping on computers and stuff. Like Ricky, he knows what he's talking about. And then when they start, like you said, Arnold goes, well, this frankly is not interesting enough, Ricky goes, well, okay, let me tell you about something called visiting.
That computers can do. And I was like, visiting? What is this going to be?
I fancied myself a pretty techie kid. I have never heard this term visiting being used to describe basically the internet, right? Going online. And he proceeds to do he proceeds to hack basically like a military website. Now,
okay, so wait for it, not a website, a computer, an actual like mainframe, right? So, but here's the fun little nugget that I didn't know because I didn't watch either of these shows enough. TransAllied, the company that his computer visits, is the company that Mr. Drummond owns.
That is interesting. What I was fascinated by, and you're going to have to walk us through this whole metal alloy thing that they discover, but this notion of a boy on his personal computer after school hacking into a government computer.
Yeah, like war games.
Exactly. Getting into trouble for it. I go, oh, all right, this is happening in the early 80s. This is a riff on War Games. I get it. This probably came out the year after War Games, and they're doing a little thing on that. This is 1982. War Games comes out in 1983. So War Games ripped off this season 1 episode of Silver Spoons. Yeah, because it's the same freaking story. He goes on this website, or like you said, he hacks into this server and discovers, oh, there's a certain metal alloy that has been, like purchased or something. Like, do you remember what the sort of trail of facts is that they uncover with their encryption, their code breaking algorithm?
Right. So yeah, sort of. I mean, we have this thing where he's like, computers can do this thing called visiting. He was like, oh, look, I'm visiting this, a computer in a company called TransAllied and da-da-da-da. And he's like, oh, sorry, I hit a wall. It says top clearance, top secret clearance or whatever. And Arnold is like, oh, well, bummer. It would have been a good story, but oh, well. And he's like, wait, I wrote an algorithm that can like break this code. And so he types in a few things and the computer tries. And then, he eventually hacks through the top secret clearance, and we have an error. Did you see this? Before he finishes typing in before he even starts typing in for the third time to try to break the code, he goes, little Ricky says his line early, and they just leave it in the show. He was like, that's it, I'm in. And then he types something in, and it breaks it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't catch that one. What I did catch throughout this episode was at least 3 or 4 times where actors slightly missed their cues, where it's just a fraction of a second, but there is a moment's hesitation where the next actor that's supposed to speak doesn't, hesitates, just misses the beat a little bit. This was definitely shot with the Ed Wood production style.
Like,
if nobody hurt themselves, we got it. Move on to the next.
I know. I was just like, what? Anyway, so he types in and he gets through, and then he's like, oh, like you said, there's this new metal alloy that they've discovered if you mix something and something. And who cares? And then he's like, oh, but that's going to be used to develop a new weapon. Oh, wait, they have a picture for it. And then this like schematic of a fighter jet
Starlight 2000.
Yeah, right. And so he's like, oh, wow. And so then Arnold starts taking pictures, and then that's the story. Like they've found out that there's a new government secret weapon that this company has developed, and they've got these government contracts to build now. So that's going to be the story, new government secret weapon.
But the story is just like the Starlight 2000 exists, right? Like that's all right. So we just have to go with that. Yeah, so, they're off to the races, and the next act is Ricky discovering that Arnold published all of this in his 6th grade weekly.
With the pictures and the names, and he's like, wait, you shouldn't have used the names when we figured out all that stuff.
This is our 2nd podcast in a row dealing with journalistic ethics vis-a-vis anonymity of sources and things like that. Arnold says, "Oh, don't worry, I never name my sources." And he's like, "Except for in the other page where I named you because my teacher made me."
Yeah, my editor wouldn't publish it.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have made the first page.
So Arnold goes like, "Don't worry," because Ricky is like, "Look, he doesn't use the word hack. He's like, we visited a top secret government computer. We shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have written about it. Like, this is all very bad." Arnold goes, "Don't worry. It's a 6th grade newspaper. Who's going to ever find out about it? Knock, knock, knock."
It's the FBI.
Yes. Well, these character actors that we've seen as stuffy guys a million times played these 2 FBI agents that are there, like, tracking them down. And so Arnold and Ricky hide, right? Yep. They hide and the dad gets the door.
They hide. The dad comes down, has his remote, opens the door, in they walk. And there's they have a fun little kind of back and forth between the 2 of them that we get to see play out through the rest of the episode. You got the one that's kind of pretty straightforward, just like trying to figure out the facts, what's going on. And then you got the other guy who is, comically obsessed with all of the fun things that they have in this house. And is like, got a kid-like sort of fascination with all of the cool big kid toys and little kid toys they have in the house. But also, at any moment, is just like, we're going to send him up the river. Your kid's going to get the death penalty.
Yes, they explain that, your kid has hacked into the government mainframe, blah, blah, blah. This constitutes treason, and the penalty for treason is death. Right. Which
Arnold and Ricky hear because they're hiding just around the corner, and they're like, and then Ricky says the most insane thing that I think I've ever heard, which is, we got to get out of here. And the best way to get out of a place when you need to run away and disappear and never come back again is a
tramp steamer.
A tramp steamer.
Yeah.
2 words that I was like, is he talking about a train? I don't know.
Sounds
I had
like
no
a sex
idea.
thing
I was
or
like,
something.
what is he talking about? I had no idea what the next scene was going to be because I was like, what's a tramp steamer?
Yeah, this is wild though. The final act of this episode is Arnold and Ricky on the lam,
stowing away in a crate of cheese on a nasty barge that looks like it's been pirated.
Yeah, I have to say, I was impressed with these production values.
This is why they didn't care at the beginning when people were just missing their cues. They were like, we got to get to the tramp steamer.
This is a Saturday morning show. I'm used to, everything's going to happen off camera. Oh, yeah, we decided to come back home or whatever. No, they cast multiple, like, pirate-esque, shipmates and stuff. They have an old grizzled captain.
The captain was fantastic. Like, what an acting job.
Yeah.
He did so great.
They're discovered hiding in this crate, and the captain's like, all right, leave him to me. And he he kind of like scares them straight with his autobiography.
Well, he does the like the reverse psychology thing on him.
Yeah, he's like, all right, you can stay on this ship if you don't want to go back home. You'll have to clean the banisters and everything. And he starts talking about how, he once had a family, but he left them behind. He goes, once a man leaves, he never returns. And and basically Ricky and Arnold get homesick.
Sometimes, but I wouldn't trade my life on the seas for anything.
Yeah. And so Ricky and Arnold decide to go back home, and the scene just ends on that captain guy just like for a full beat, just staring silently, like just
smoking
wistfully,
his pipe.
Into the middle distance. Yeah. And so then there's just a coda back at the end where the kids come home, come clean. And, the FBI guys are like, all right, look, we're not going to kill you. We've confiscated all the copies of the Weekly Woodpecker. So we've contained
since you published the schematics of our new super fighter jet weapon.
Yeah. And now they just need Ricky to teach them his code breaking technology.
And they say the computer guys will be here tomorrow.
Yeah. So Ricky's like, okay, I can teach you my code cracking stuff. It was very
catch me if you can.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, this was fun. I think this is a really good, good way to approach something like this, where Arnold is taken completely out of out of his world. So we're not bogged down by any of the different Strokes stuff. We just get this fun little story with Arnold and Ricky as a twosome.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's less of a crossover and more of like, hey, let's take this really popular character that everyone loves and let's drop them in to this other situation and see how they would behave then. And that's exactly what we're going to get in Full House.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to Full House.
Season 4, episode 16, Stephanie Gets Framed.
Yep, Full House is old news at this point. We've talked about it lots of times. And this is really this is what we're all here for, right? To have Urkel himself coming over and joining the Tanners. I mean, Full House and Family Matters were sort of like sister shows, always kind of competing for which one could be cheesier. They're in that same sort of...
well, they're Miller Boyette. Their theme songs sound exactly the same.
Exactly. They shared that TGIF lineup.
And they are also like an extended family all kind of poured together in one home.
Yes.
But they're on different ends of the country and the socioeconomic scale, right? You've got a cop and a stay-at-home mom, and then, well, I guess she's an elevator operator as well.
It's funny
sometimes
you say that because, yes, their occupations are very different. The sizes of their houses are exactly the same. like the Family Matters house is still huge and beautiful, and you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really reflect that they might be struggling financially more than
no, because I don't think that they are. I think they're solidly middle class. But then when you go over to the Tanners, they live on the most expensive street in the United States.
Yeah,
they live in one of the Painted Ladies in San Francisco, and that is and Danny is a television personality, in a major market in the U.S. And yes, he's a widower, but he's got all of his family around to support. So I mean, definitely opposite ends of socioeconomic scale there. But yeah, so Urkel is cousins with one of DJ's friends.
Yeah.
And he's in town because of a science fair.
Yes, although that never comes into play. That this is all just tossed off in one line of dialogue.
The reason it's construct is because there was no Family Matters episode on TGIF that week.
Interesting.
Family Matters and one of the other shows, probably one of the ones that sort of
Step by Step or
I don't know.
Strangers.
This was 91, so it would have been the two early hour shows. They got bumped for a New Kids on the Block Disney MGM Wildest Dreams special.
Interesting.
So this was a big day in the Morris household because I was a huge New Kids fan. This was 91, so this is prime New Kids time. And yeah, they were at MGM, which is, only 45 minutes away from where I grew up. And we had season passes and we were there all the time. So it was always so exciting when they shot these specials at MGM because it was always in places that I'd been. And so that was always so cool. So yeah, definitely a big night in my household.
Yes, I do not remember that. I famously detested the New Kids on the Block. And
as all the boys did because they were jealous.
Set my New Kids on the Block trading cards on fire and then hid the ashes in the attic. But
and learn the lesson to never lie.
What I would say is... It's interesting that, as you mentioned, they get Urkel in there by saying that he's the cousin of DJ's friend. Now, I would guess that Urkel is closer to DJ's age than he is to Stephanie's. I would guess he's maybe a year or two younger than DJ, but definitely
no, I don't
older.
think so.
No, you think he's the same age or older? I guess.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What I'm getting at is, I think I would have preferred if they had done this a little more like Silver Spoons and let's match up Urkel and DJ as peers and give them some sort of story that they could do.
Yeah, because it was apropos of nothing that Steve just stayed back in this young girl's bedroom that he didn't know to have a conversation with.
Before we even get to what he does with Stephanie, we basically get little moments of Steve with a handful of the Full House characters.
Yeah, DJ and her friend come running in, and they explain who is about to come in.
Yeah.
That her cousin Steve is so annoying, and he's only in town for the science fair, and he's been following them around all day, and we were never here, and we're never coming back. Don't tell him where we are.
Yeah.
And they disappear into the kitchen. And then, door opens, ding dong, and it's Steve, and then he gets to have these interactions with Uncle Jesse and Danny.
Huge audience reaction when they open it up and it's Steve Urkel. Like you have, I mean, yeah, we know it's him because we've seen the commercials on TV.
He was the what you
stuff.
talking about Willis of his day.
Yeah, and you definitely wouldn't be thinking about it if this girl was like, oh, my cousin Steve. And so, yes, everyone goes crazy when he walks in. And then the highlight of this scene, the part that was clearly meant to be the clip you show on the commercials and stuff, is Uncle Jesse is going to say, hey, Steve, you walk all weird and uptight. Why don't you loosen up and walk like me? And he teaches Steve this like weird flowy walk, this, Urkel trying to walk like a cool guy. And then Urkel in turn will go like
but it's the elbows. The elbows are better for your circulation.
For your
Get
circulation.
your elbows out.
Yes. So you get to see first Urkel trying to walk like Uncle Jesse, and then, even better, you get to see John Stamos for a few seconds doing the nerdy Urkel walk with the elbows at 90-degree angles. And that's it. Like, I think that was their equivalent of Lucy and Superman on the ledge.
Right.
This Thursday on Full House, or this Friday rather, and you see Urkel and Uncle Jesse inhabiting the same space, him teaching him the nerdy walk, like, oh, okay. But what I would say is that overall this episode, it's not horrible, but it doesn't really deliver on that potential. After this scene, Urkel goes up and we've got all of the girls together in the room. And, the main story of this, of course, is going to be a major overlapping trope. Stephanie comes home and says, my teacher says, I'm having trouble reading. I need glasses, right? She's got a note from the teacher. She's going to have to get glasses.
And she is very unhappy about this because she thinks all the kids are going to make fun of her and she's going to be very uncool.
This is Fonzie in Happy Days. This is Jesse in Saved by the Bell. Your standard. I have to get glasses, but I don't want to.
It's the worst thing ever.
Now, interestingly...
how old were you when you got glasses?
So... I didn't get glasses until I was in maybe like 8th grade. And then even then, I didn't wear them regularly until like college, probably.
And you were able to see before that or not really? Like, did your eyesight get worse? Is that, or...
Well, that's how it is for most of us. Yeah, I think I eventually noticed my friend Dennis had a similar eye journey to me. And I remember standing outside the middle school and looking at the buses and looking for our bus numbers. And he had just gotten glasses. And he goes, yeah, now I don't have to squint anymore. I can put on these glasses. And so I remember trying on his glasses and going, oh, wow, this is great. Now I can see the buses. So at some point probably over like puberty age, I would guess, my eyesight had diminished a little bit. My eyesight for distance. Yeah. And so, when I put on glasses, it made things clearer. But I think I was just absent-minded about them for a while. And I feel like it wasn't until college that I really got into the habit of like, yeah, I can't see the TV as well if I don't wear glasses and stuff.
Well, so did you ever have that feeling though, as a kid in like 8th grade, being like, oh God, I have to wear glasses and I'm going to be...
No, I always liked wearing glasses. I always felt like I have harsh facial features, so that's the thing that I'm self-conscious about, not the
glasses like smooth out the big nose for sure. That's why I like wearing them.
Yeah, I always felt like there were always, representation matters, right? There's always tons of examples of different celebrities and stuff. MC Hammer wore glasses, for God's sakes.
Well, and smart people, right? And you definitely have that thing of like where you consider yourself, intellectual, and so
there was plenty of role models for me in the the world of entertainment or real life for that matter, that I was never self-conscious about it. What I will say is I've always been acutely aware of the changing trends of thin, discreet, wiry type glasses like we had in the 90s.
Yeah, that like Uncle Jesse was wearing in this.
And thicker Buddy Holly type glasses that became more popular at the beginning of the 21st century.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting when Stephanie comes home and says, woe is me, I need glasses. And, you know, she says, I'm going to be a Four Eyes. Everyone's going to think I'm a geek. And Jesse goes, well, do you think I'm a geek? And John Stamos whips out his glasses, and they are the little subtle wire glasses that most of us were wearing in the 90s that were at the time like the cool glass, or not even cool so much, like they were just the sort of normal glasses to wear.
It was the, like, you were definitely nerd coded, like back in the 60s with the, you know, with the tape around the middle if you had the thick glasses, like the thick frames.
Yeah, in general, I feel like at this time, late 80s, early 90s were out. So it's weird when Uncle Jesse shows her his glasses and is like, see, I look fine. Look at my glasses. She's like, okay. And then, you know, when she eventually gets her glasses, they're like super thick Coke bottle glasses with this big ass handlebar, like connecting them in the middle.
Well,
like, did she not get to choose them?
No, they're little kid glasses. And so that's the thing. I don't know. Have you now little kid glasses? They have a strap around the back. They're like goggles almost.
I feel like we had them in the 80s.
Yeah, I feel like people who get, and you'll notice the hooks on the ears, they're like longer. They're more like a C, so they'll stay on your face. Like they have these, the ones that were made for kids to withstand all the things that kids would do to them, stayed ugly a lot longer. Okay. And I think now, yes, obviously there's all sorts of polymers and things that you can do, and little kids can have cool glasses and whatever. But like little kids at my school even, who wear glasses, they all still kind of have these sort of big, thick, plasticky ones that have the kind of things that go around their ears.
Now.
Yeah, but not because they're in style.
Yeah, like all right, fair enough. I found that surprising. Stephanie's not that little at this point.
No, she's in third grade, but that's just the ones that they have available for small faces.
Okay, well, yeah, she comes in with these really thick glasses that would be quite trendy, like any time post, 1998. But at this time, they would be kind of out of style, and they do the thing.
The thing that is trendy about them is, as opposed to like Steve, who wears the big glasses, is that they're small. They have the small, like eye holes, whereas Steve wears like the giant ones.
He's got the almost like a Gordon Gekko type glasses or something. But they do, they show her looking at herself, and they do the thing. We just watched the movie The Substance that does this, and the Darren Aronofsky movies where you film the person really up close with the wide angle lens, so they're all distorted.
Yeah, well, it's
really
like they're
weird.
looking through
like a peephole.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she's all freaked out, like, I look weird. And so, when Steve Urkel finally shows up and everyone's in the girl's bedroom and Stephanie's like, I'm having a bad day. I don't want to talk. Everybody get out of here. Steve, like, ushers everybody out, but takes it upon himself to stay and give her advice.
Which would totally normally be like the DJ move.
Yes.
But DJ doesn't wear glasses, so she doesn't have anything to say in this instance. So Steve, who this child has never met, is like, hey there, kid, don't you worry about this. What's getting you down? And she's like, I don't know you. I don't want to talk to you about my problems.
Yeah. It was initially, the joke is him misunderstanding in true Urkel fashion, thinking she wants him to stay, not realizing she wants everyone to leave. But then he's actually able to offer her some wisdom. And so, for better or worse, I mean, granted, his wisdom doesn't really pan out, but Urkel is presented as like kind of a sage-like figure here, more so, like he's kind of the voice saying, don't take yourself too seriously. And what's the worst? He says, once in a while people will call you things like Four Eyes or window face. And Stephanie's like, window face? Oh, I hadn't thought of that one. I'd never heard that one either. I like window face. But yeah, he says, look, get out in front of it, right? Make fun of yourself before they can make fun of you.
Yeah, have them laugh with you before they can laugh at you.
Yeah, which again, I feel like this is the old thing of like at summer camp or whatever, like nobody knows that like the context of Urkel is the most hated and mocked person in his entire school. But yeah, he's giving her advice. And so when she goes to school the next day, and, you know, somebody asks her about her glasses, we get Urkel in the little, like, thought bubble, you know, in the upper right above her head going, like, just remember to go for the laugh or whatever.
Make them laugh with you.
Yeah. And so she whips out, like, she later explains she raided Uncle Joey's, like,
joke bag.
Yes. So she has googly-eyed, springy glasses and gigantic glasses and glasses that go on the back of your head. And so she does this whole wacky comedy routine that makes all the kids laugh. And the teacher is like, Stephanie, I would like to see you now.
Yes, it is the calmest teacher
so placid,
that I have
but
ever
like,
seen. That
but
was just
sort
like,
of seething with
not
like,
even seething, just like, Stephanie, I think it's time for you to come visit me at my desk.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie does one more joke, and the teacher's just sitting there at her desk, kind of
we are
smiling,
not amused.
smiling, you know, sort of pleasantly, but really, like, you know, I'm going to write your dad a sternly worded letter in just a few moments.
Yeah. And so when they get home, that's all there is for Urkel, by the way, right?
Yeah, that's it.
He's done his part. He's had a little meet cute with almost every member of the Tanner family. And so Joey is on Heart to Heart with the Daughter episode or duty this week. He gets to have the Heart to Heart with Stephanie where she says like, yeah, I kind of raided your joke bag. I took out all your silly glasses and I got in trouble. You know, and she's like, what could I do? They were going to make fun of me. And Joey's like, well, what did they say? And she was like, well, they said things like, let's see your new glasses. You know?
And he's like, that's it? And so then he walks her over to the mirror and he tells her to look again, you know, because he was saying that the first time when she saw that, you know, like what you were describing, that like looking through a fishbowl kind of lens sort of image, he's like, you were just seeing what you were afraid to see or what you were afraid you would look like. Let's go look again. And, you know, let's look at yourself for real this time. And so she's like, oh, hey, that's just me.
Yeah. And so, you know, I said, oh, you're the most beautiful kid in the third grade or whatever. Very typical final scene of Full House type stuff. And I feel like we don't see Stephanie in glasses, do we? I feel like actually she does wear them sometimes, but they're the ones that I'm talking about later on.
She does get cooler glasses later on for sure. And they mention multiple times in that it's just for reading. She only needs them for reading. So.
Yeah. That's usually how that's the gateway glasses. That's how they start.
Which was not my experience at all.
Me neither.
So like, I'm always just like, oh, that's so fascinating.
Yeah. Maybe it's because the shows are written by people who don't need glasses, and so they think that the reading ones come first.
Yeah, maybe. Or, I mean, maybe that is where it gets noticed in young people when you see them like squinting and...
Yes, which is what happens to Stephanie. But yeah, this is definitely not bad, but I do feel like it just feels a little bit less essential. Again, this is just like Silver Spoons in the sense that we got the one character being plucked out of their setting, which is often the case. And, you know, we should also say we're covering all single episodes here. A lot of times crossovers are double episodes. And the reason is, I think, to really give you what we would want, I think.
A true crossover. Like,
you know,
Brooklyn Nine-Nine and New Girl has a classic crossover. And that was one where they were in each other's shows. Sometimes they're a double episode of them in each other's shows.
Well, and I would argue even when we get to Abbott Elementary, even the single episode that we saw kind of is more full-bodied.
Oh, yeah. Because it's the full casts interacting with each other.
Yeah.
This, to me, is the true crossover of the bunch.
You mean the Abbott Elementary one?
Yes.
Yeah, Full House, it only has the one character out of the context. So in that sense, it is like Silver Spoons, but Silver Spoons just, at least it gave you so much of that Ricky Arnold dynamic.
Yes.
You felt like they were in it together. Yes. And yeah, this was a little bit more like, okay, let's get the photo op of Steve and Jesse for the commercial. Let's get, all right, she's going to have glasses. We can work that in. Like, it's just not quite.
No, it felt like they retooled an episode that they had already written. Yeah. Where, like, to me, Uncle Joey would have been the one to have the earlier conversation about how, hey, make everybody laugh.
Yes, definitely.
Right? Like, he would have given her the sort of quote unquote bad advice. That would make
much more sense.
And then later on, she'd have the conversation with DJ or Dad or somebody
Joey
else.
Again. They could keep that as is. Yeah, the only thing you would have to change is you just lose the Jesse and Urkel.
Walking,
yeah, which, we can live with.
Because the other subplot that we hadn't talked about was the guys deciding who's going to be the best man. And so that was the other, thing that was going on with all the characters. And so, I think you're exactly right. I think they just had a story they'd already written, and then this New Kids on the Block thing was going to take over. So you can't possibly have a TGIF week, a TGIF night without Urkel. Like, he's got to be somewhere. So let's get him in this other show.
Making a mountain out of, or rather making lemonade out of lemons by bringing Urkel over to Full House.
That's right.
All right, let's bring it on home with Abbott Elementary.
Season 4, Episode 9, Volunteers.
Yep, so we're bringing in the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia gang into Abbott Elementary, and I'll say that this is sort of the inspiration for this podcast episode. When I looked at the little New York Times email this morning, there was a little blurb about Philly crossover. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia attends Abbott Elementary.
Yes.
And I was going to read it, but I'm logged out of my New York Times thing on this computer. So I just get this little preview sentence that says, the two sitcoms could hardly be more tonally different, but this week's crossover episode of Abbott was relatively seamless. And I think I agree with that. These are shows that are very, very different, but this really had a good time with combining them.
Yeah. So, and I'm super excited about the season premiere of Always Sunny. Mm-hmm. That will be the part 2 of this.
Yeah.
And so what it is it's actually just everything that happens when the kids aren't around. So what we've got here is the PG version. And when the Always Sunny cast realizes that they're being filmed.
Well,
right?
That's just it. It's not just the PG version. They call out that the whole mise en scène of Abbott Elementary it's a fake documentary. Yes, in the style of The Office. And so, and you probably don't even think about that if you're a regular watcher of this Abbott Elementary show, but 10 seconds into the first conversation with the It's Always Sunny gang, they go, what's with the cameras or whatever. So it establishes that this is all being seen through the camera crew of the Abbott Elementary thing.
Exactly. And so it allows Dennis's character from Always Sunny to be like, I gotta, peace out. I'm gonna do everything off camera. They didn't even know if he was going to be available for the filming because he is currently in production for his other show Sirens, which is, I guess, like an hour-long drama. It's going to be on, I don't know, whatever, but it's like, it's got Julianne Moore in it. It's like one of these big...
Dennis is basically not in this one.
Right.
That's part of the
And that's part of the thing. But he is in the Always Sunny version, which will be, coming out at the, mid this year, when they start back up again. And so, anyway, so what we see is all of the scenes of them helping out in the classrooms and helping out with the kids around, and Mac gets partnered up with the principal.
Yeah, the concept is they're volunteers. The episode begins with the principal saying, good news, everybody, we've been granted volunteers from, the city or whatever, and there are going to be people coming today to help us. There's 5 minutes or so of anticipation and the normal
They're
characters.
all thinking about what can we have them help us do and get done because we never get any help help from the school board. The first thing that happens is while they're having this faculty meeting talking about the volunteers coming, the scoreboard falls off the wall and crashes to the ground. And so they're like, oh, maybe we can get the volunteers to help with that. One of the teachers is like, yeah, my ducks are all messed up. Like one blows really hot, one blows really cold. And so the classroom has like different zones and it's really weird. And so maybe they can help with that. And everybody's just trying to think of all the things that they can get these volunteers to help do. And I'm thinking, how the hell are the Always Sunny people volunteering for anything? This has got to be community service.
Yeah, which is funny. That is ultimately a reveal in the episode. And, you know, the Abbott elementary teachers are all surprised. Oh, these people are criminals. They're here on court-ordered community service.
And the redheaded teacher recognizes them from the beginning, but can't quite place them.
Yeah.
They have this moment where she's like, you guys look familiar. Did you ever get into a fight at an Eagles game? And they're like, yeah, of course. We've gotten tons of fights there. Go Birds, go Birds. But what made me laugh about that is that, you know, she's the one that if anybody had ever been to Patty's Pub.
Oh, yeah.
It would be her. And so later on in the episode, it clicks for her as to where these people came from.
Yeah, I guess to me it would have gone without saying that they're there for a court-ordered thing. But I guess initially they're presenting themselves as like, oh, no, we're just volunteers.
Just volunteers, right. And then like midway through the episode, they realize that it's community service. The teachers all realize that these are criminals. And so they stop calling them volunteers and start calling them the criminals.
Yeah, but I think it's funny, like when they first show up, you know, Mac, Dennis, Charlie, and Frank and Dee, and they're just sort of standing there in the hallway, and there's this sort of awkwardness to the setup, as you literally have like the casts of both shows just kind of standing there, like, how do you do? But I was like, this is perfect for the It's Always Sunny thing, because you could imagine, you know, every one of those episodes is them just getting this idea in their head of like, oh, let's do this thing. So even before you, the audience, necessarily discover that it's a court-ordered thing, you could just believe like, oh, they just decided to go on this adventure, or they just one way or another got themselves into these circumstances where now they're just kind of like, yep, here we are, you know, like you wouldn't normally just have like the cast of Family Ties just like standing there in a row being like, we are here to help with your school.
Right.
But with It's Always Sunny, they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're just like, let's be cowboys.
Well, and the other thing that I think that makes this crossover work so well, and so it only came about because Mac, what's his name, Rob McElhaney and Quinta Brunson met at the Emmys last year. And they were like, oh, haha, both our shows in Philly, we should do a crossover. Ha ha ha. Like as a joke. Yeah. And then both of them kept percolating on it and got back in touch with each other. And they were like, no, seriously, let's try to do this. Let's see if we can make it work. But the thing that I think is really the reason that I think it works is because both shows in their own ways are very chaotic.
Yeah.
Right? It is like, and it's the adults that are incompetent that leads to the chaos all the time.
Yeah.
Or even like in the case of Abbott Elementary, trying to be like good and, you know, still not able to really be successful. And the other thing that I think is similar about those two shows is that they both also try to like end with the lesson. Mm-hmm. And it's always the anti-lesson that the group in Always Sunny learns. And then in Abbott Elementary, it's always like about the lesson they're trying to teach the kids that somehow ends up teaching like them a lesson.
Irony. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that, even though they couldn't be different, like, you know, like all the think pieces about them coming together are talking about, there are these through lines. One is like the light side of the darkness, and one is the darker side of the darkness.
Yeah, I think another way to say it is like they complement each other in the way of like, It's Always Sunny is kind of about like, we put these characters, we have them be crazy and amoral and do all these things, and you see all of these people react to them.
Right.
And Abbott Elementary, in the style of The Office, and I don't mean this disparagingly, but it's still a variation on Jim Halpert looking at the camera in confusion. You know, it's about people reacting to weirdness and going like, oh my God, can you believe this guy? Or, oh God, what am I going to do about this? And so they are sort of like this perfect kind of like yin and yang thing where the It's Always Sunny characters give these Abbott Elementary characters just sort of like something to react to, basically. And that's what this ends up being, is like, look, we've got our 22 minutes or whatever. We're just going to have, we're going to come up with a fun thing for each one of these characters to do.
Yeah, Abbott Elementary asked for an extended run time for this episode, and ABC approved 15 seconds.
Wow, okay. Well,
wasn't that nice of them?
They made the most of it. So, perfect example is Charlie. His whole thing is he's illiterate, right?
And so which has been a running gag for, 17 seasons or whatever on that show.
Exactly. But it's that difference in tone of It's Always Sunny is just going to have these sort of like randomly, like to be funny, he will just be like completely unable to read sometimes. Yeah. Whereas Abbott Elementary is going to try to like frame that into like, well, gee, this grown man can't read. What can we do about that?
He's in a room full of teachers. And so, of course, Cheryl Lee Ralph is like, I used to work with adults who were learning to read, and it actually is a bigger problem than we think. And, so what happens is he's originally paired up with the like younger gay white guy who is a 7th grade teacher at the elementary school. Let that one sink in. I talk about it every time we do this, we cover this show. But so he's originally paired up with him, and he's like, I need to trade him off with, to a younger classroom. So he tries to give him to the redheaded teacher. And she's like, no, I don't want that guy anywhere near my class. Get these criminals out of here. And then Cheryl Lee Ralph, who's the kindergarten teacher, comes around, and they, and they both of the teachers now have realized that he can't read. They mention it to her. She's like, we can do something about this. And so by the end of the episode, Charlie gets a little graduation ceremony because he's learned how to read. Yes. He still obviously has issues. The tag at the end, one of the tags at the end of the episode, is like, I can't wait to get out of this school. They play their games against ghosts. Yeah, because he's trying to read. Yeah, instead of guest, he reads ghost.
Yeah, exactly. So that is Charlie's story. He's going to learn how to read. Lots of funny stuff there.
He fixes the ducks, though.
Okay.
Yep. He fixes the ducks. That's the first thing he does. He's like, fix your ducks.
And he's always like sort of commenting on like what they're teaching. Like, I see you're doing Industrial Revolution. Yeah, that's...
No. He sees that because he can't read and thinks it is interesting wares and starts talking about fashion.
Yeah, but then when she corrects him and says, no, it's industrial, he goes, oh, sorry, I know. You mean when the robots went to war.
Right. So, exactly.
But yeah, that's his thing. Frank is Danny DeVito is going to sort of like become total nemesis with their like sort of groundskeeper janitor type guy because Well, they have different approaches to what to do about the raccoon that's been bothering
There's a
them.
Storyline that they didn't have time to go into, but it was, it was written, it got cut. So the backstory is that Frank and Mr. Johnson went to the same high school and dated the same person, which has already been established in, part of that story has already been established in Always Sunny because Frank and his brother dated the same girl. Do you remember Shady Nasty? From Always Sunny? Okay, so Shady Nasty is from Always Sunny. Frank and his brother both dated her, and this is also who Mr. Johnson dated. So that is this long-running beef that they've had, which is why they will say the opposite from each other no matter what. So you've got, what's his name? The kid from Everybody Hates Chris, who he runs, like, he's a teacher, and he also has this, like, garden at the school, and both of them, Frank and Mr. Johnson, are trying to help him deal with the raccoon issue in the garden where he's got compost. And so that's what's going on. So they're trying to figure it out. Well, he thinks that the right way to handle it is to add chili powder and garlic to the compost because that'll like keep the raccoons away.
Wants to do.
No, that's what the guy from Everybody Hates Chris wants to do. The janitor wants to get a big ass cage, and Frank thinks you got to scare him away. So you need urine-soaked pelts.
Yeah, pelts drenched in the urine of an alpha predator to scare them all away. He says the only way to deal with raccoons is intimidation.
That's right.
Says if you put chili pepper on the plants, it's just going to make them more delicious.
Yeah, it's going to make, the dirt, by the way, not the plants. No plants in there yet, just compost, just dirt.
But it's funny, like you see, it's not just the Abbott Elementary characters being reduced to being the straight man, because you got, Frank obviously is always insane. He's being a lunatic as usual, but the way this janitor character plays it is really funny too.
Yeah.
Like he's always just sort of bizarrely angry and indignant at Frank's suggestions and just kind of like, this guy's a jerk. And yeah, like just that bait, like that's that story. We get, Frank sleeping in the raccoon cage because it takes place over a week.
Right. By the end, they try the chili powder and garlic thing, and the next day it's worse. The raccoons did exactly what Frank said they would. They got into it even more, and he's like, I told you that would just make it more delicious. Yeah. And then at the end, we find Frank caught in the cage, and he's covered himself up in the pea-soaked pelts.
Yes.
And they find out that he's the one that's been eating the compost because it tasted good, and it tasted even better when they added the seasoning. So he's been coming by at night and eating the dirt. No raccoons. But he got cold when he got caught in the cage, so he covered himself up with the pelts. And he said, don't worry, though, when the raccoons came by, the pelts worked. I scared them away.
Yes, God bless him. Danny DeVito at the age of 70 whatever, just this character. It's so funny, the things he does, just taking off all his clothes and, dousing himself in Jell-O and whatever for these episodes. Like, it's so funny. It's such a familiar sight now to see him like curled up without any clothes on with these raccoon skins on top of him.
What did he do? Like, was he on another TV show between Taxi and Always Sunny, or did he just was he just in the movies with the twins and all that?
He's directed several movies.
Penguin,
War of the Roses, and Death to Smoochie, and a handful. I think Throw Mama from the Train maybe are Danny DeVito directed movies. And I would argue for a while he was a A-list comedy movie star.
Guy,
I mean, by the time he's doing the Penguin in Batman Returns, he's obviously he's a singular presence. He's you're not going to put him up for the roles that Tom Cruise goes
idol
for,
kind of guy.
But he is really at the top of his game in terms of just like a big box office draw and a really recognized guy.
What an interesting career. You can tell that he likes to tell stories and be a part of interesting storytelling.
Get Shorty was a big one for him in the late 90s. But anyway, Mac has, I feel like, the most kind of wishy-washy story. He has kind of a love-hate relationship with the principal. He's
he's trying to suck up to her so that she'll sign off on their paperwork early so they don't have to stay the whole week. And I have a feeling, because there's not much developed there, most of what we see, the broader stories that we see developed, are the ones with the other Always Sunny cast members who are in the classrooms and interacting with the teachers. So I have a feeling that this connection, this partnership of Mac and the principal, we'll see a lot more of in the R-rated version, right? In the Always Sunny version, because it's more an adult connection.
Yeah, he eventually helps her blackmail this scoreboard engineer guy. But we don't...
Yeah, she's trying to get somebody from the district to come and fix the scoreboard, and they won't get anybody, so she
says, you've lost your leverage.
Yeah, so she ends up... she blackmails some contractor to come and do it for free.
Yeah, the picture book that Charlie is reading has a little factoid about a certain kind of
protected and a
species.
Bird.
And so, this is kind of something out of Parks and Rec. She uses that to blackmail the guy. It doesn't really matter, but we get the sense that, yes, Mac, we're going to get maybe more of their relationship.
He goes and gets her car detailed, and he brings her cinnamon rolls, and he's doing all this stuff to try to suck up to her. And every time he does one thing, he's like, so you're going to sign off on that paper now? And then he overhears her say, I think I might, frame him for another crime. Like, he's been so helpful. He's gotten all this stuff done for me. I might frame him for another crime so they have to stay for another week. And the camera like quick cuts over to him standing in the room next door to where she's talking with like a oh shit face, like realizing sucking up to her isn't the way to go. You have to like do shit wrong.
Yeah. And what he does is write thank you notes to all the teachers telling them they're doing a good job.
And she's like, you don't even know what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah. When he tells her that, she says, oh, these people run on
insults.
Run on insults. So I can't have you. So yeah. So that's his thing. And then I feel like the most fun one is Dee being paired up with Quinta Brunson's character, Janine. They get along famously at first. Janine has what, like a 5th or 6th grade class?
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah.
And
she went to Penn, and that's like, she loves to talk about that she went to an Ivy, and that, people often forget that Penn's an Ivy. And Dee is like, oh, I went there too. I practically lived on whatever like the main drag is, which there's like, no, she didn't. I don't remember that from Always Sunny. Do you remember that?
No, I thought you would have a better handle on this than me. There's a point where Quinta Brunson says something like, oh, people often confuse it with a state school. So I took it that like Dee went to like Pennsylvania Community College, or like she went to some other thing and she's confusing
No,
it.
I think when Dee said, I think the key here is that Dee said, I practically lived on whatever like this main drag is. No, I think that she went and hung out there and partied there.
Oh, but didn't
didn't
attend
the school.
Did not matriculate.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think that like, oh, I went there too. Like I always hung out there. I was always partying, with the, like on that main street. Because that was like, oh, because where else would you go? That was where all the bars were. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, girl, and giving each other high fives and stuff. So it kind of, I don't know. Maybe we'll get a little more insight when we get to see the other side of this episode. But yeah, I think that it's more about like, I hung out there and partied there.
Yeah.
And she said, I practically lived on whatever that street is. So like for a time she was probably homeless. Like we get several references to like, I think Charlie at one point was like, yeah, I can do that. One time I lived outside.
But it was a little confusing because it does seem sincere. Like it does seem like Dee is just saying like, oh yeah, I went to that too. And you're expecting it to pay off to figure out what the confusion is. And it's never totally clarified. But anyway, they get along really well. And so for the first couple days, while all the other Abbott Elementary characters are complaining about these people, even after they find out that they're criminals, Janine is like, no, I like my volunteer. I like Janine.
And it's just a misdemeanor, and doesn't it set a great precedent that we're welcoming these people?
They're doing a Benjamin Franklin demonstration where Dee has dressed herself up as Benjamin Franklin. They're doing this cute little,
and
thing
when he
for
touched his kite, the key attached to his kite, and she doesn't, and she's like,
yeah. So at first Janine is like, this is great. This is like a partner in teaching. This is like exactly what I need. And then while Dee is still dressed up as Benjamin Franklin, Gregory, the young man teacher that is Janine's boyfriend, comes in, and Dee's just totally like, oh, like it just
this is my guy.
Yeah, just starts flirting and just like, all right, new mission. I want this dude.
Right. So then the next day or later that same day, she's got the kids making Valentines for the teacher next door, Gregory, whatever his last name is, and Janine sees it and she's like, oh, that's so cute, to one of the students. Like, I didn't know you had a crush on Mr. Whoever. And Dee's like, oh no, that's for me. He's going to think I'm so sexy when he sees that I got the kids to do this for me. Yeah. And she's like, well, he's with someone. He's with me. And she's like, oh, even better. Great. So I can take a swing at him, right? Like thinking no, and Janine's like, well, no, we're in, like, he's my boyfriend. It's a serious relationship. She's like, sorry to tell you, I'm still going to go for him. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. And she's like, all right, it's on. And so, yes, Janine starts freaking out. They start getting into this little spat in the hallway. And at one point, Janine calls Dee a bird, which is great. That's the little lore within It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They always say she looks like a bird.
Yes.
And so when Gregory comes over to like break them up as they're getting into fisticuffs, she's like, this dang ass bird thinks you're going to seduce you. And so, yeah. And that,
and he's just like, okay, calm down.
Yeah.
Like, I will, like, first of all, you're the only one I want, which was very sweet and cute. And you get a nice little reaction shot of Kinta Brunson being like, he likes me. And it was very sweet. And then he's like, and even, you know, and if I was going to like leave you for anybody, it's definitely not going to be her. So just relax and it's fine. And so that all gets kind of settled.
Yeah, I mean, it plays out over a few more scenes with just, you know, the usual, you know, Caitlin Olsen is so great at playing that character of just like no self-awareness, just total line drive in one direction. You know, when Gregory first calms down Janine and says everything you just said in this very calm, reassuring voice and sends her back into the classroom, Dee goes, that was so hot. What you just did.
Yes.
And then, but it's, you know, it doesn't resolve itself in any way other than, you know, Gregory she says something like, I'll meet you out back after school. And Gregory's like, okay, if I don't come at first,
she
just
says,
keep waiting.
She says, meet me on the mats in like behind the bleachers or something, on the mats in the gym in 15 minutes. And he's like, yeah, if I don't show up, you just, you know, keep waiting.
Yeah. And so, you know, it ends like, I feel like a lot of these Abbott Elementaries do, you know, we don't have to have the heart to heart. It doesn't have to be a big sort of everything come together like Seinfeld. It's almost like a sort of anticlimax where Janine is saying, let's never ask for help again. Right. And they're all just going like, yep, that happened.
Serves us right. And the principal signs off and says, get the hell out of here, because, you know, he wrote thank you notes. So she's like, you don't understand what I'm trying to do here at all. Yeah. Which I thought was very funny.
And then, you get a series of talking heads. Again, this is great in terms of just putting the mise en scène from one show onto another. Yeah. You know, because you don't normally have the
like
It's Always
Mac
Sunny
talking
characters
directly to the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you get them, you know, in quick succession having little sound bites to the camera. And the last one you already said is Charlie in the little graduation cap and robe going like, I got to get out of this place. Just look at that scoreboard. They play basketball against ghosts because it says home and guest. And really, really funny.
Yeah, it was great. I'm sort of excited for, and also a little sad that we didn't get to see the Always Sunny, you know, other side of this. And just because, I mean, like the way it's described as this is the R-rated version of the same exact show, but it's what happens in all the moments where they aren't around the kids.
The Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah, so we didn't get a lot of, you know, one of the things that always happens in Abbott Elementary is the teacher's lounge conversations. Yeah. And we only got one at kind of the beginning was at a faculty meeting, and then at the end we got a little bit of one after they had already left. So I'm assuming that all those other faculty lounge moments that are normally sprinkled in
the middle,
throughout the show, maybe, but I don't really remember. But like the ones that are usually sprinkled in throughout the show will have more of those, just the adults having the moment. The other thing is that they'll do the same thing with the when the cameras, because on the Always Sunny, the cameras aren't on. So these are all the moments when they are off camera. So all of our characters from Abbott Elementary get to be their not teacher selves.
Yeah, well, and you also maybe will see the camera crew all the time running around, you know what I mean? Like the omniscient cameras of the It's Always Sunny world would capture these camera guys running around all the time.
That's interesting. I'm very excited now to kind of see that. It also says it was written to fill in any of the gaps. So that's why the thing with, you know, Dee's character saying I went to Penn, like I'm wondering if it'll get filled in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, a lot to take in here. So what do we think? Any MVPs or overall thoughts?
The I Love Lucy one was just so wonderful. And it was the first time, right? Just to have that idea for the first time ever. Now, look, I'm sure that there were crossover radio episodes of shows in the past. So it's not like they had the idea for the first ever crossover anything.
No, but the first time that a TV network was like, hey, let's combine these two shows.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I enjoyed it. It was a classic, you know, it's one of those kind of classic structure of Lucy episodes. They even said it in it, like, we know you're going to get into some sort of silliness. I was shocked by Silver Spoons because most Silver Spoons episodes are pretty meh. And this one was actually good. I was like, all the extra characters they had in it, from the captain to the FBI agents, were very funny. There's a whole little like side story that the sort of straight man FBI agent is a good friend and like character player for Orson Welles. And while he was on set filming, Orson Welles called and was like, I need you to be a magician in this thing. Get here now. And he's like, sorry, I'm filming. And the director was like, is that Orson Welles? You need to go. We'll hold production for you. And like shot other stuff because he was like fanboying on the phone with Orson Welles and let him go. I was like, that's crazy. So yeah, okay. Favorite, I think, was Silver Spoons, but I'm going to hold out the question mark there for the Abbott Elementary because I want to see the other part.
Yeah, I am on exactly the same page. I never thought I'd see the day when I would be saying Silver Spoons really impressed me. Again, when they were like, all right, we got to get out of here. Let's go on the steam tramp or whatever the hell they called it.
Steamer.
I did not expect the next shot to be like this fully realized, like a port of call with the steamship coming in and the kids hiding in the crate and a cast of characters of pirates.
Yeah, there was this huge
captains.
dude that was like, he was like dressed like Smee, but he was huge.
Yeah. Again, the fact that, yes, we didn't get the entire world of Different Strokes, but in this very short Silver Spoons episode, you got to have a really fun Arnold Drummond Nee Jackson adventure with this Ricky. Like this, if I was a kid, I would have totally eaten this up. Just the two of them going on this little adventure together. Sure, it's probably like 6 minutes of the show.
Would have been interested to start watching Different Strokes if our family wasn't already watching it.
Yeah, so that one is really fun. But yeah, in terms of if you were to say like academically, the one that really rises to the challenge of the crossover, of course, this Abbott Elementary does such a good job for all the reasons we said of plugging in all of the different characters of each show and the different sensibilities of each show and kind of playing out like, okay, what would happen if we combined this and this? They're putting an effort. That's what we always want from these shows. We just want them to be interesting and fun and to not just be on autopilot, which is what, to an extent, the Full House one is doing. That one's not horrible, but to me, that definitely is a little bit of the dog of the bunch because, like you said, it's like, okay, it's an episode about Stephanie gets glasses and Uncle Jesse chooses his best man and, Urkel's got nowhere to be. All right, let's bring him in here and have him teach Jesse how to walk like a nerdy guy.
Yeah, 100%. And there are so many others. I mean, we have a huge list now of all of these fantastic crossovers. And truthfully, there are so many others that kind of fulfill what Abbott Elementary and Always Sunny did that we just didn't cover because we were interested in some of these others that we either hadn't seen or kind of like with the Urkel, how do you not, like on this show in particular, how do you not cover the TGIF one? You know what I mean? And so, but I feel like the Archer Bob's Burgers is another one of these where like it is a true crossover. You've got multiple characters. It starts out with just Archer, and the guy, of course, H. John Benjamin voicing both. And so it like such a good episode. And then the other one that I have not seen, but now I'm really curious about is that 3-way Disney crossover with Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Hannah Montana, and It's So Raven.
Yeah, that is huge, I think, for people a little younger than us. Yeah, I just feel like, because I've never seen the Sweet Life or That's So Raven, it would just be, the specialness of that would be sort of lost on me. I was there for the Victorious iCarly mashup.
Like, what is that one
that
called?
That was more
the iParty
with Victoria or something.
Victorious, yeah.
But,
and I mean, hey, timely, right? Because that's got the Ariana Grande in it, right?
Yeah.
She's in Victorious. So.
Yeah, no, who would have guessed that she would come out on top? All right, so much for the crossover episodes. What are we talking about next week?
Come on, Jay, hop in the car, let's gas up. It's time for a road trip. We're going to watch Grace Under Fire, Season 2, Episode 21, Memphis Bound. The Simpsons, Season 7, Episode 20, Bart on the Road. Joey, Season 1, Episode 11, Joey and the Road Trip. And Parks and Rec, Season 3, Episode 14, Road Trip.
Yep, road trips are next week, and until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.